Every Christmas, it was the same excuse. There just isn't enough room for you and the kids, my mother would say sweetly, as if kindness could soften the cruelty. So I'd stand outside clutching gift bags in my children's tiny hands, listening to the sound of my nieces and nephews tearing through wrapping paper inside. Last year, I thought maybe, just maybe, it would be different. I baked cookies, I wrapped presents, I called ahead just to be sure. And still, on Christmas Eve, I stood on the porch of the house I grew up in with my daughter asking, Mommy, why aren't we going inside? Through the frosted glass, I could see the table already full Melissa's twins, her husband, even her mother-in-law, but not me. My mother smiled politely. Maybe next year, she said. I didn't argue. I just nodded, took my kids back to the car, and quietly decided that next year would be mine. I didn't say anything to my kids as we drove home that night. Leia, my 6-year-old, hummed softly in the back seat, probably trying to distract herself from the confusion she couldn't quite name yet. Ben had already fallen asleep, clutching the little reindeer plush he'd been so excited to show Grandma. When we got back to our tiny 2-bedroom apartment, I tucked them into bed, kissed their foreheads, and stared at the bare spot in the living room where a Christmas tree should have been. Then I sat down at the kitchen table, poured myself a glass of boxed wine, and opened the text from my sister. Hope you're not too upset. Mom was really overwhelmed this year. Maybe stop by tomorrow, for leftovers. After everyone else had laughed, unwrapped, and eaten, I didn't reply. It wasn't just tonight. This had been building for a long time, slow, quiet, and consistent, like a steady drip from a leaky faucet. You eventually stopped noticing. It started small. A birthday dinner I never got the invite for because we thought you were working late. Mom's retirement party that I found out about through Facebook. A family barbecue where Melissa tagged everyone in a group photo, everyone except me. Each time I told myself it was a misunderstanding, that they weren't being intentional, that I shouldn't make a fuss. But even when I brought it up gently, carefully, Mom would smile and say, oh, honey, you're always welcome. Always. Welcome, unless the table is too full, unless Melissa's family is there, unless the room just isn't big enough. That night, I made a promise to myself. I was done pretending that being treated like an afterthought was normal. I was done letting my children think it was okay for their mother to be invisible. And more than anything, I was done with the myth of next year. There would be no more knocking on closed doors. If they couldn't make room for us, I would build. A new table one with wide chairs, warm lights, and enough space for people who actually wanted to be there. I didn't know how yet, but I knew this. Next Christmas, we wouldn't be standing on a porch. We'd be opening our own front door, 6 months. Before that cold Christmas Eve, my marriage officially ended. There were no shouting matches, no slamming doors, just silence and the sound of two people drifting apart over years of unmet needs and tired compromises. Jacob and I sat at opposite ends of a long wooden table, ironic, really, and signed the final papers. He kept the house in Charlotte. I took the kids and the car and moved back to my hometown, Charleston. I told myself I was coming back for the support, family, familiarity, stability for Leia and Ben. What I didn't realize was that I was walking straight back into the same dynamic I'd spent years trying to outgrow. My parents welcomed me politely, but with that tight-lipped tone that made it clear they thought I had failed. Melissa never said it aloud, but she didn't have to. She wore superiority like a perfume, just strong enough to make sure everyone else could smell it. The apartment I found wasn't glamorous. 2 small bedrooms, old tile floors, and a leaky faucet that whined like it had opinions, but it was ours. I got a job as a junior marketing assistant at a boutique firm downtown. The pay was modest, but the work excited me. I started picking up freelance design projects at Night Logos, websites, copywriting. Sometimes I worked until 2 a.m., eyes burning, heart pounding, because even if no one else saw my worth, I would. Some nights, when the kids were asleep, I'd sit on the floor of our living room with takeout and draw blueprints, literal sketches of the life I wanted. A home, a backyard, a kitchen filled with noise and smells and people I loved. A Christmas that didn't require permission. Leia taped one of those sketches to the fridge. It was a drawing of a big house with a red door, snow on the roof, and 3 stick figures holding hands out front. Underneath, in her uneven first-grade handwriting, she wrote, "Home, just us." I kept working. Every client I took on, every penny I saved, every late night and early morning I poured into that dream. Not to prove anything to my family, but to prove something to the little girl who used to sit at the kids' table and wonder why there was never room for her anywhere else. To the woman now raising a daughter and a son, determined that they would never feel like visitors in their own story. Momentum has a funny way of showing up when you stop waiting for permission. By spring, my freelance calendar was full. Local cafes needed websites. A yoga studio hired me to rebrand. A small law firm wanted monthly social media strategy. I worked. During nap times, after bedtime, between school drop-offs and morning meetings. It was exhausting, but it was mined out at the agency my boss began noticing. One afternoon, after presenting a campaign pitch to a client that landed hard applause, he pulled me aside. "You've got real instincts," he said. 2 weeks later, I was promoted to senior marketing associate. 2 months after that, to account manager. And with each step forward, the vision I'd sketched on napkins and kid art paper came closer to life. One Thursday in early October, I passed a house. It wasn't flashy. In fact, it looked a little tired. Its paint fading, porch light crooked, yard overgrown with ivy. But there was something about it. A wide front porch, big bay windows, and a bold red door that seemed to say, "We're ready for something new." I pulled over, wrote down the number on the for sale sign. That night, I pulled up the listing. 4 bedrooms, built in 1930, heart pine floors. A dining room with original wainscoting. 10 minutes from the kids' school. 5 minutes from downtown. I clicked schedule a tour without a second thought. The first time we stepped inside, Leia ran her fingers along the banister like it was a piano. "Mom," she whispered, "it smells like Christmas." Ben wandered into the dining room and twirled in the sunlight. I closed my eyes for a second and I could see it: garlands on the mantel, laughter in the kitchen, a table big enough for 12 set with real glasses instead of plastic. 3 weeks later, we closed. When I told my parents, my mother said, "Isn't that a bit much, Natalie, for someone in your situation?" My father blinked and said, "Well, I just hope you thought it through." "Melissa," she texted, "4 bedrooms? That's ambitious. Sure you can keep up with that?" I didn't reply. I was too busy pulling up old carpet, repainting the walls, and scrubbing away years of someone else's history to make room for our own. Leia picked lavender for her bedroom. Ben chose dinosaurs. I set up my first ever home office lit with sunlight. An ambition. And then I stood in the dining room, the heart of the house, and ran my hand across the table. I bought secondhand, but refinished myself. I whispered, "This year, we stay home by November." The house didn't just feel like home, it felt like ours. Every corner told a new story. Leia's watercolor sunflowers were taped to the fridge. Ben's toy trains were parked beneath the hallway. Radiator, stacks of client folders piled high on my office desk. I was juggling more than I ever had, and yet, for the first time in years, I felt steady. Then one night, while brushing Leia's hair before bed, she asked, "Mommy, who's coming to Christmas this year?" The question hit like a whisper in a church. I'd been so focused on surviving the year, I hadn't let myself imagine December. But the second she asked, the vision snapped into place like a puzzle piece waiting for its turn. I didn't just want to host Christmas, I wanted to redefine it. The next morning, I made a list not of gifts or groceries, but of people. People who had shown up when my own family didn't. People who had clapped when I advanced, who had offered rides, watched my kids, passed job referrals, sent "you've got this" texts at midnight. The list grew quickly. Maya, my college roommate, whose toddler once called me Aunt Tally. Mrs. Ellis, our elderly neighbor who dropped off banana bread after every storm. Jonah and Eric, the couple across the street who helped me move. A couch at 9 p.m., Claire, Leia's art teacher, who stayed late every Thursday just because Leia loved painting dragons. 10 seats, 10 hearts, 10 choices. Then came the wild idea. Years ago, Melissa had dragged the family to a fine dining restaurant called Magnolia House, where she'd fawned endlessly over the executive chef, Adrienne Moss. Truffle risotto, smoked. Duck with cherry glaze, hand-whipped mascarpone. She'd posted about it for weeks. I Googled him on a whim, then called the number listed for private bookings. His assistant answered, all business. Chef Moss's December is fully booked. Has been since August. I paused, then said softly, I'm willing to triple his standard rate. Silence. Then, I'll check with the chef and call you back. An hour later, my phone rang. Miss Warren, Chef Moss would be honored to prepare Christmas dinner. In your home, I stared at my calendar. It was the 3rd week of November. We had 1 month. The menu, unbelievable. Herb-crusted lamb, smoked mushroom ravioli, chocolate souffle with spiced citrus cream, sparkling cider for the kids in crystal glasses I'd just bought on sale. I ordered invitations not printed, handwritten. The header, join us for Christmas. A celebration of chosen family and good food. The closing line, seeds have already been made. All you need to do is arrive hungry and loved. Christmas morning arrived, crisp and golden. Sunlight poured into the kitchen as Chef Moss and his 2 assistants transformed my little southern home into something out of a magazine. The aroma of rosemary, butter, and warm bread danced through the air like a hymn. I tied Leia's ribbon, while Ben carefully placed napkins at each setting, counting under his breath, 1, 2, 3, 10. When the doorbell rang at 2 p.m., our guests stepped into warmth. Maya brought wine and her daughter's laughter. Mrs. Ellis handed Leia a tin of cookies wrapped in a red ribbon. Jonah and Eric came with a homemade wreath. Claire brought watercolor cards painted by her students, one of which featured my house. Complete with its red door dot, we toasted with sparkling cider and champagne. We laughed. We ate food that tasted like it had stories. Chef Moss explained each course with pride, and the kids beamed as if he were Santa and Chef Whites. At one point, I stepped back from the table and just breathed. No tension. No tight smiles. No silent measuring of worth. Only joy dot after dessert, we moved to the living room for cocoa and board games. Leia challenged Eric to Candyland, then fell asleep on Mrs. Ellis's lap. Jonah played quiet jazz on the piano, and I impulsively, nervously picked out my phone. I hadn't posted much all year, maybe a few photos of the kids, some vague quotes. But this moment, it felt earned. I took 3 photos. The dining table glowing in candlelight, food untouched and perfect. Leia and Ben laughing in the kitchen with Chef Moss in the background. A group shot me, the kids, our guests all raising. Our glasses caught in that warm, blurry magic only real moments create. The captions were simple, grateful for friends who feel like family. When Christmas feels like coming home. December 25th, surrounded by love. I hit post dot within an hour, the likes rolled in. Comments too. This looks beautiful, Natalie. You deserve every bit of this. Wait, is that Chef Moss? I smiled. Until my phone started buzzing. First a call from Melissa, then Mom, then Dad. I didn't answer. But when I checked my texts, Melissa had written, "Was that really Chef Moss in your photo? How did you even book him? Then why didn't you invite us?" I stared at that last message for a long time. Why didn't I? Because every Christmas you didn't. Because every year I stood on your porch with children and hope, and you told me there wasn't room. Now I had made my own room. And this time, there truly wasn't space for anyone who only shows up when it's convenient. I didn't reply. Not yet. Some things deserve silence first. 3 days after Christmas, just as I was beginning to enjoy the silence, Melissa showed up. No call, no warning. Just the sound of tires crunching in the driveway and sharp knuckles rapping against the front door. I opened it slowly, already bracing. There she stood in her tan wool coat and designer boots, holding a gift bag in one hand and carrying something sharper in her eyes. "We need to talk," she said, stepping in without waiting for permission. The warmth of the house met her like a wall. She looked around, taking in the garland-lined banisters, the glowing Christmas tree, the empty wine glasses still drying by the sink. Her gaze lingered on a framed photo on the console table, the group shot from Christmas Day. Everyone smiling, everyone glowing. Her expression tightened. "Nice house," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Didn't realize you were doing this well." "Thanks," I replied evenly, closing the door behind her. Leia and Ben were upstairs, playing. I didn't want them to hear this. "You can sit," I offered, nodding to the couch. She stayed standing. "So," she began, her voice too sweet, "you really hired Chef Moss, like the Chef Moss?" I did. "Do you know how many years I've tried to book him for Mom's birthday?" She snapped. "Apparently he doesn't work with rude clients," I said lightly. Her smile cracked. "You've always been dramatic," she said sharply. "Posting those photos, it was petty. It looked like you were trying to make us look bad." I laughed, low and bitter. "You didn't need my help for that?" Her eyes narrowed. "You're mad about one Christmas, Natalie, one, and suddenly you're throwing some extravagant dinner and parading it all over social media like you've been abandoned." "One," I echoed. "Melissa, when was the last time I was invited to any family event where I wasn't treated like a pity seat or excluded entirely?" She opened her mouth, closed it. "I'll wait," I added. "I just think," she said, recovering, "that it's sad, the way you're acting. All this chosen family stuff, like it's revenge." "It's not revenge," I said, my voice quiet and firm. "It's healing." She scoffed. "No, really," I continued. "You spent years making me feel like I didn't belong. Like my kids were too much. Like I had to earn a spot at the table I grew up at. I never meant to make you feel. You did, Melissa, whether you meant to or not. You did, and no one ever apologized. No one ever said, 'Natalie, we see you. We love you. We're sorry.' You just gaslit and deflected and changed the subject." She looked down at her shoes. After a long pause, she said softly, "Mom's been crying for days." I said nothing. She feels humiliated. "People at church saw the photos. They're asking why you weren't at Christmas." "She can tell them the truth," I said simply, "that there wasn't room." "She regrets that, does she?" I asked. "Or is she just upset that other people noticed?" Melissa let out a shaky breath. "I know we haven't been fair to you," she said, "but this felt like a slap." I looked her straight in the eye. "Good," I said, "because maybe now you understand how it feels." She looked wounded, but I didn't pull it back, not this time. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "You already did," I replied. "The day you decided your comfort mattered more than my presence." The day you shut the door and told me to come by for leftovers. The day. You smiled like it was reasonable to leave me and my kids standing in the cold. She sank onto the couch. What do you want? She asked. I walked to the fireplace, picked up one of the watercolor cards Claire had given us, and stared at the red door she'd painted on it. I want respect, I said. Not pity, not an invitation out of guilt. Just basic human family. Respect, she swallowed. And if we changed, could we still be family? I turned back to her. If you want to be part of this life, my life, you'll have to earn it. With actions, with honesty, with something real. Silence filled the room, thick and electric. Then I'll try, she said, voice thin. Good, I said. Because this time, I'm not making space for anyone who doesn't show up with their whole heart. That night, after Melissa left, I didn't cry. I thought I might. But instead, I sat in the living room, surrounded by the lingering scent of cinnamon and pine, and watched the fire crackle low. Leia padded down the stairs, in her fuzzy socks, clutching her blanket. Mommy, she said, climbing onto the couch beside me. Why did Aunt Melissa come? I hesitated. She wanted to talk. Is she mad? No, baby, I said gently. She's just learning. Learning what? I looked at my daughter's face, so open, so full of questions the world hadn't crushed yet. Learning how to love better. She blinked, then laid her head on my arm. I like our kind of love better, she whispered, and just like that, the years of hurt, the slammed doors, the too tight smiles, they all softened. Over the next few days, I started noticing more, not about my family, but about ours. When I was building, one day, one boundary, one banana bread wrapped in a ribbon at a time, Leia started setting the table for dinner without me asking. Then drew pictures of our house with smiley stick people labeled me. Mommy and Chef Moss, he drew him wearing a cape. Mrs. Ellis started coming by once a week for tea. Jonah and Eric helped hang new light fixtures. Claire offered to mentor Leia. And watercolor painting. It wasn't blood. It wasn't official, but it was real, and my children, after years of being passed over, hushed, or too much at someone else's table, were finally learning what it felt like to be wanted, not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because love, the real. Kai makes room. One night, while tucking Leia in, she turned to me and asked, "Is it okay to say no to people if they make you feel small?" I froze, then nodded. "It's more than okay," I whispered. "It's necessary," she grinned. "Good. I don't want to invite the cousins to my birthday party. They're always mean." I blinked. "Okay," I said. "It's your party. You get to choose." She pulled her blanket up to her chin and smiled like she just passed a test I hadn't realized she was taking. As I turned off the light, I realized something. I wasn't just healing myself. I was teaching my kids what I never learned until far too late, that real love doesn't ask you to shrink or wait outside. Real love doesn't punish your growth. It expands to fit every part of you, even the one still aching. 2 weeks later, I got a message from my mother. "Your father and I would like to see the children. Perhaps we can do something for your birthday." I read it twice. Then I put the phone down. They hadn't mentioned the Christmas photos, or the table, or the conversation Melissa and I had. Just the children. Not me. That told me everything I needed to know. I didn't respond. Not immediately. I needed space. And more than that, I needed clarity. That weekend, as we decorated for Leia's upcoming birthday, I watched her tape up invitations with glittery stickers and little hand-drawn hearts. She turned to me and asked, "Do I have to invite people I don't feel safe with?" I smiled. "No, baby, you never do." And neither do I. That night, I finally replied to my mom, "The kids are doing well. Their schedule is full, and so is our life. If you'd like to reconnect, it has to begin with honesty and respect." I'm no longer entertaining anything less. She hasn't responded since. But you know what? That silence feels lighter now. Lighter than all the years I spent trying to earn my seat at a table that was never meant for me. Because here's what I've learned. Love that needs to be earned in silence isn't love. Love that excludes, belittles, or conveniently forgets isn't family. The family I have now shows up without needing to be asked. They text memes. They bring soup when my kids are sick. They remember my birthday. They cheer when I land a new client. They stay after dinner to help with dishes. And that's more than enough. Last week, Chef Mouse called to confirm Christmas. Again, same date, same menu, with one addition this year. Leia's favorite, maple glazed carrots. Ben requested s'mores. We're making those too. The guest list is bigger this time. Some new names, some old ones. All chosen. All welcomed at this house, this table, this life. It's full. Full of laughter, full of mess and growth and homemade joy. Full of people who know how to make space, not excuses. If Melissa ever chooses to truly show up, not for appearances, but with sincerity, I'll open the door. But I won't beg. And if my parents want a relationship, they'll have to meet me where I am. Not where it's comfortable for them, because we don't sit outside anymore. We own the porch. And this Christmas, like everyone moving forward there, will be 12 chairs around the table. Every seat filled. No explanations, no apologies. No more waiting for a place. Just warmth. And a red door that only opens for love that knocks with grace.